I now call on Patrick Harvie to open for the Green Party.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can I echo the thanks to my fellow committee members and everybody who's contributed to the committee's work on this issue. And can I begin by welcoming the unity that appears to be being shown tonight. It appears that tonight Green, Labour, SNP and Liberal Democrat MSPs will stand together in defence of the Parliament that we campaigned for together 20 years ago. The Conservatives, the party which campaigned against the creation of this place, had given the general impression over those 20 years that they had accepted how wrong they were and had come to accept the existence of this Parliament. Well, what has become glaringly obvious since this Brexit crisis began is that they still cannot come to accept the legitimacy of the distinct political will that exists in Scotland. It has been expressed in elections to this Parliament, and it has been expressed in the 62% Remain vote 2 years ago, and the Conservatives are ignoring both. Look, I think everybody knows that I'm not someone who sees much merit in the Conservative Party's politics, which I consider broadly despicable. But I can still admit that I had thought there were some Tory politicians who were basically rational and decent people. People I could respect despite promoting a political ideology that I detest. What I've been astonished at is the speed at which they have abandoned reason and thrown their lot in with the Brexit extremists. In doing so, they are ignoring not only the views of the people they represent on the question of Europe itself, but they are also ignoring every objective assessment of the country's best interests in favour of the delusional ramblings of their party's extremist fringe and those further right whose support they seek to win back. But as well as this, the other aspect of Scotland's political will that the Tory position today is ignoring is the desire to have a Parliament here in Scotland which makes decisions on the same basis that was set out those 20 years ago, a model which has developed over that time, but which has never moved away from the principle that what is not reserved is devolved. And let's remember that the most recent development of devolution involved a commitment eagerly welcomed by Adam Tompkins and his colleagues to give the principle of legislative consent a statutory basis. Well, we were sceptical of that promise, Presiding Officer. We were unconvinced that that promise had any real substance in law. But even I didn't imagine that just months after passing the most recent Scotland Act, they would tear the whole idea up, utterly overturning the principle of consent. I understand that our Education Committee has been looking at the issue of consent education for young people. All well and good, an important issue which does need to be addressed. But the person most clearly in need of consent education is the Secretary of State for Scotland. Consent, if the idea is to be meaningful at all, consent must be freely given or withheld, without any coercion, without any threat. It must be freely revocable, something that can be withdrawn at any time. And most importantly, most fundamentally, the idea of consent must be respected. And if the UK government proceeds with its apparent threat to legislate in this area without our consent, then they will have entirely justified us in rejecting this bill, proving that they cannot be trusted on the principle of legislative consent. Presiding Officer, I want to turn to the Labour amendment. I can't honestly say that I see a great deal of value in it. There have been cross-party talks here at Holyrood, organised by the Scottish Government, which Neil Findlay and I have both participated in, and I'm not aware of any innovative new proposals from Labour so far. I'm still in that position after hearing Mr Findlay's speech. Would another series of such meetings involving UK ministers actually force them to relent? Would it actually change their position? I doubt it. I give way to Mr Findlay.
Neil Findlay.
Yes, we have had cross-party discussions here with the Scottish Government. We've never had cross-party discussions when the UK Government have been at the table as well. And wouldn't it be good for us to show a united front and putting forward some ideas to break this logjam. Surely Mr Harvie would want that.
Patrick Harvie.
Of more meetings, and if Mr Finlay wants there to be more meetings, I'll come along. But I am entirely sceptical that the UK government will relent, will change their position, and that is what needs to be changed. I see no evidence that they are about to do so. It seems to me that this is more like the magical thinking of those on the Labour front bench at Westminster, who have also given up on the country's best interests and seem positively supportive of abandoning our European future. They are rightly scathing. They are rightly scathing about a UK government that can't even make its mind up about customs arrangements nearly 2 years after their self-induced Brexit crisis began. But the Labour leadership seem only able to offer the idea that if they were at the negotiating table, the inherent problems and contradictions of Brexit would somehow evaporate and they would simply get a better deal. This is magical thinking, and today's amendment seems little different. But whatever. If they want to cling to the idea that one more round of meetings will somehow persuade Mandel, Liddington and co to relent and abandon their position, then fine. The critical point, presiding officer, the critical point is that we must all, everyone who believes in the legitimacy of this Parliament and the distinct political will of the people we represent, stand together in defence against this EU withdrawal bill. Those who worked together to create this place must now unite to stop the demolition squad led by Ruth Davidson and Theresa May. And if we can unite in that in the final vote tonight, we will be doing our jobs.